I think the women also should be able to, they are in that race, when they are in the promotion race or whatever race, whatever you call it, they need to quantify it better than the other people. That's what I felt when I was there in corporate world also. I faced the similar issues, but then how you have to quantify and then say that we are able to do, we will be doing, take the challenges and come up.
Part of what women have to learn is actually how to negotiate and how to bring up the correct points, how to prepare for interviews and how to prepare for, even if you have an annual review, how do you prepare for an annual review, right? You have to bring up your points. You have to write down your successes.
Yes.
During the year, you need to write down the successes you have had with numbers, with quantifications, so that when you have an annual review, you can actually bring those to the table and say, I did this project. This is how we delivered. Here's what my contribution was. You need to name it. And you need to self-promote.
Yes. I think women need more than men because self-promoting is more important. I think this should be one of the core qualities of any lady. Whether it is any world, anywhere, any place, we need to project ourselves, self-promote ourselves. That's the right word, I think. Goes with.
Yeah, and I think what women have to face here is that in the education, often in the education, women are still told to be quiet, to sit in the background, to not put themselves to the fore. This is an educational issue also, right? If we can start in the education system, not tell women to shut up and sit in the background, but actually encourage them to speak up, that would make a huge difference in the long run.
So, because once they come out of their colleges and all, the outcome will be totally different. Like their approach will be totally different, if at all. I think there is a change slowly coming up in India.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see.
I think it is slowly happening, but I think we can do more.
Yes. So coming to your, I mean, you have worked in different cultures, right? You worked in Europe, you worked in US, now you are in India. So what is the change you mostly see in these cultures, and how do you think that, I mean, you see there better, here better, or I mean, how do you compare them basically?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I grew up in Europe, and the business culture in Europe is more such that it's generally humane. Okay, it is very human centric. So people don't work late hours. They're not expected to answer emails after like 5 in the evening and things like that. And they have, there's a good healthcare system. There's a very good maternity leave policies across Europe almost, So they have very good policies regarding human resources. The fact of that is that companies have high costs for employees, and they're pretty stuck in their ways. So people don't change very often their roles, and they're rather, kind of fixed in their approaches.
Comfort zone.
In a comfort zone, both the employer and the employee. Simply because it's costly to change, it's costly to find new people and so on. So it's rather stuck in a certain way.
Okay.
On the other hand, in the US, you have a very flexible system that is very driven by performance. Okay. But it's at the same time, in my opinion, very inhumane.
Okay.
Because unless you work for a very big company, there's no maternity leave. Sick leave is 2 weeks. 2 weeks holiday sick leave is one thing. There's basically no vacation. You have to really struggle to get any free time. They expect you to answer phone calls in the middle of the night.
On call.
Yeah. Business is above anything else, and family life is very reduced. You don't have much options. If the company asks you to do something, you better do it, because otherwise you lose your job. So it's a very inhumane, in my opinion, it's a very inhumane kind of way of dealing with it, but it's very profitable and it's very flexible. So people change jobs every 2-3 years, get to the next job, this, that, and the other thing. So it's good for young people who are aspiring for, and are willing to work like 60, 80 hours a week. For those people, it's a good system. The older you get, the more difficult it is, because you might not be able to work 80 hours a week anymore, right?
Yes.
So for that, then it gets hard. In India, it's a different system, in my experience. And you tell me, because you have much more experience in India than I do. But from what I've seen, the way it works in India is it's a much more humane context. So where family is considered, holidays are considered. Yes, they work long hours. That is generally true. But at the same time, there's a lot of vacation, a lot of holidays. People are generally, it's more considered like a family, in a business context, and less hierarchical and less kind of, it is hierarchical, but it's not cutthroat business hierarchical. It's more still trying to contain like a family kind of environment to some degree, to have a chai together, to do things together, to hang out and, enjoy some parts of it. At the same time, long hours are required in India. And that is something that I find is challenging for women, especially if they have to be in the office. Now with COVID and work from home, it's a little better. Women, at least if they have hybrid work, it's more manageable. But for women to do 12-hour shifts is very hard.
Very difficult.
Because they still, in most families, the women are the ones to cook, the ones to do some of the house chores, mostly taking care of the kids. So unless you have a partner who is really taking on a lot of that load, the women are really, it's very challenging for women to work that long shifts.
Yes.
And I think this is where we have to really consider the business culture in India also. Does it make sense? Is it right for leaders to encourage 12-hour business days? Or should it be encouraged by leaders to at least be able to go home? You can have another call late at night, but it needs to be able to get home by 6 or something, and then be able to work maybe another hour or two in the evening, so that it's a little more flexible. I think this is very important for women.
Yes.
For women to succeed, that's an important part. They can't stay until like 10 o'clock at night in the office. That is not feasible for women.
That is not a good idea at all. But the leader has to understand, like when he has got females in his team, he has to support and understand, like in sense, she can go home and work and she'll be at peace to work. Basically, the women have to be at peace to work, right? Anybody, not just women, anybody. But then it is more for women. Why? Because she will have her family, kids, and all these things, responsibilities. Men have their, in sense, there is my wife to take care of, there is my lady to take care of. So that part of it, as you said, there has to be this long staying in the office culture is not much, you cannot encourage that much. Probably, I think the women should have, after COVID at least, the women should have really a hybrid, this thing where she can come a couple of days to the office and rest of 3 days she can work from home. I think she or he will be able to contribute. They will be able to give good deliverables if you are given that freedom. Basically.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think generally, I know there's many companies who force people back to work in the office now. I don't know if that really makes them more productive. They say, yes, they need to be there for meetings. Okay, yes, you can have hybrid, that there's certain days where you have to be in the office. I understand that this might be required. Look, there might be some in industries, some specific parts of, companies where you have to do that. I understand. But across the board, I don't think it's necessary. I think there can be more flexibility than many are granted. Yes. And I encourage women to look for jobs that have that flexibility and go to companies that offer that flexibility. Because they will be much more successful in those companies. If the companies force them to work from office, 12 hours a day, I don't think it's a feasible proposition for women. And then those companies won't have women in their workforce. Yeah. And eventually they might lose out on the great leadership skills, on the great innovative potential they have, on the different mindset they bring to the table, on the empathy they bring in leadership, and many other things that women are bringing to the table. So if companies are not willing to support the women in that way, then they will lose out in the long run.
Not only that, see, now women, they have to travel and go home, and traveling time also is so much. So yes. I think they have to consider the work from home, at least hybrid model, if not totally work from home. And the other day, I just happened to read one article, there is a person who is working in Gurgaon, and he happened to work in Gurgaon for the last 6 months. He's been working from home only. and his productivity was very good, and his deliverables, whatever he was delivering, were excellent. But he was asked to come to office, and within 3 weeks or 4 weeks, he lost his job. Why? Because the reasoning there is, when he comes to the city, he was working from his native place or close by places or whatsoever. So all his costs, like whether it is cost of living, whether it is a rental, whether it is something else, everything could be taken care of, and he had the company of his parents or his loved ones with him, and he could give 100%. But when he came to the city, he has to pay the rent, and there are so many tensions and brokerages and advanced rents and other things. And the food was not, I mean, you're not getting a quality food or something like the home cooked food, what I mean to say. All these compromises, as I mean, they have affected him, and finally he quit or he lost his job, whatever it is. So I'm not saying that everybody has to be given work from home. There are some jobs where work from home may not suit. So can I know something about boardrooms and C suites can be seen as exclusive places? Can you please elaborate? Like, see, I want to know what happens in the boardroom, why they think that women cannot do or something like that. We would also like to know. We want to improve on those lines.
Yeah, so boardrooms typically have been a very male-dominated space. Okay, only in general, I'm generalizing. Obviously, it's not always true, but in general, men in their 50s or 60s would be the chairperson of the board members, and so on. They would have grown through the ranks and then eventually maybe become the chairperson of the board or similar. The reason it's also a male-dominated space and keeps being that way is because when new board members join, they typically look first in their network.
Okay.
The network of the males in their 60s is other males in their 60s.
Yes.
Right? So they first look in that network, and the first people they take is those people, those friends, those classmates they know for like 20, 30 years. These are the first people they will take on their board. So it's a self-generating repeat. So same people come into the boards again and again. So for women to break into those board roles is extremely hard. Obviously, the government has made the rule in 2013 and then in 2016 updated that women independent directors and then women directors to be on boards of publicly listed companies. It has helped to some degree. But that is only if the companies are actually embracing that fact and not resisting it. Yes. What I mean by that is they can have a woman on board, but then not let her speak even a sentence. So then women get very frustrated when they are onboarded as independent directors and then not be taken seriously, right? Because the women that generally come to boards, unless they are daughters or wives or whatever, which might not be qualified, but the women that for example, Divershefy provides, is our Divershefy distinguished directors, are extremely qualified women with 20, 30 years of experience, have been there, done that, C-level, budget, control over high-level budgets and so on. So extremely qualified, right? And still, even if they are super qualified women, to get into those board roles is so difficult because the network of the existing board members is not including them. And so what we are doing is we're pushing to include the women into those networks, into those, get to meet these male board members to get to understand, yes, there are female board members who are extremely qualified. And it's not just the ingenue of the world.
Yes,
there are more than a handful of people, a handful of women who can actually extremely contribute to the boards in India and across the world. So we are placing women into board roles across the globe, not just in India, but in the US, in Europe, Singapore, Australia. We have women extremely qualified in all those regions, and we are happy to facilitate. Anybody who is seriously looking for qualified women to join can reach out to us. We have those candidates. So the excuse, there are no qualified women, it's just an excuse. It's actually not true.